Welcome to the channel. My name is Mark. This is Man on a Mission Fishing. Thanks so much for joining. You know what? I forgot to put my mic on. In today's video, we're going to talk about fishing heavy vegetation. We have a lot of very fertile lakes in Minnesota, and we get very heavy weed growth, be it algae, pondweed on the surface, all the way into that lily pad, milfoil, coontail mixes, cabbage, very thick weeds. Can be very frustrating for people to fish, but it can be quite the bonanza when you run into a few. So we'll go over a few presentations. We'll kind of go over gear that I throw it on, and some baits that I throw with the particular presentations. Not going to go over everything, of course. Everybody has their favorite style of plastic or bait, and I'm just going to kind of go through what I use or what I have used and what kind of works for me, and we'll take it from there. So we'll start off with everybody's favorite. This is something that I am not an expert at, but I do throw it. This would be a hollow body frog. Now, hollow body frog is a staple everywhere in the country. A lot of people will throw them in open water, imitating bait fish on the surface and such. And but for me, I generally throw this in like pads or moss or thicker weed cover. Patchy weeds sometimes when things are out on the surface next to reeds and things like that. So this particular setup was what I was using in the fall when the weed growth has died back a bit, so it's not quite as thick. So generally you'll want to throw these on more of a heavy, extra heavy rod with a fast tip. They make a lot of rods specifically for frog fishing. A lot of times they'll have a real wimpy or extra fast tip so that you can walk the dog with a frog. I am not good at that. I like to just toss it out over the tops of pads or moss, algae blooms, duckweed, things like that. Slowly work it in, try and bob it in place or whatever, just try to get that reaction strength. This frog here happens to be a Swamp Lord by Berkeley. Started fishing that a couple of years ago when they came out. I think it's a pretty good frog. Reasonably priced, not insanely expensive, so it's a decent budget frog, I think. Of course, I think Spro Bronzeye is the Cadillac of frogs. I think everyone, if you talk to anybody that knows anything about frog fishing, I think that's probably the #1 frog right now. I have a few of those as well. I just happen to have the Swamp Lord tied on. So this rig that I have it tied on is like 30-pound braid, straight braid, to it's a 7-foot medium heavy fast action rod. Like I said, I wasn't throwing this in the super thick stuff. When I throw it in the super thick stuff, I up my rod to like a heavy fast action. Actually, one of these other rods that I'm going to show you next probably is one that I would throw it on if I was in the heavy stuff. But since I was fishing it in a little bit sparser vegetation over the fall, I had it on this medium heavy rod. Worked out great for me. This is a rod I built myself from mud hole. Put it together myself. It was like the first one I ever made, so the guides aren't exactly clean, but they worked out pretty good for me. I was happy to get some experience building this sucker. So presentation number 2 would be, of course, everybody else's second favorite. Probably a big jig. What do you think? This jig is on a 7-foot 11 Lewis Super Duty rod. This thing is, like I said, 7/11. It's on an 8-to-1 reel. It's an old Quantum Smoke. This is just the big jig. This is a 3/4 ounce lead jig. I don't even know who makes this. It's so old. I think it was either an all-terrain or an Outcast. I think it's an all-terrain jig. I don't know if you can see how this looks. It's got a big head on it, kind of a pointy vertical line tie on it. That allows it to get through the weeds a little bit cleaner. I cut down the weed guard on it a bit so that it's a little bit easier to penetrate. If you have those long weed guards on there, sometimes it's harder to get that sucker to bend over and sink into the hook to sink into the fish's mouth. But this, of course, I'm throwing on, I think this is 60-pound braid actually on this one, because this one, I believe, I have thrown that frog on as well in the thicker stuff when I need to make a long cast. One other reason I like to use a little bit longer rod for jig is because generally with a jig, I like to fish a little bit farther away from the boat. I don't know. I tend to like make a little bit more longer pitches or flips. I like to get it away from the boat a little bit and then into the heavier stuff. And then when I set the hook, I like to get them up and out of that stuff as soon as possible. So the bigger, longer, heavier duty rod and line allows me to horse those fish in a little bit easier. So that's one of the main reasons I like to throw those bigger rods. Now, I have noticed that if you're using like a Series 100 reel, most of my reels are like 100s, you can really do some damage to your reel if you tighten down the drag super tight, like you really need to do for the heavy weed fishing. A lot of guys will want that rod basically so that there's no drag at all. It just sticks and it holds. Well, if you use that 100 series reel, they're just not robust enough to last a long time with that. I've got one of my Daiwa 100s, SB TWs or whatever, in the shop right now getting fixed because I messed up the drag on it by actually you pull on the line and instead of the drag going, the whole damn spool spins backwards. And I don't think it's the anti-reverse bearing, because that's more with the handle. It's just the whole spool. So I screwed something up fishing braid on that 100 series reel, so I'm actually kind of looking for more of a 150 to 200 series reel to fish some of this heavier stuff on, and hopefully I can find some decent sales here in the next 4 months, maybe upgrade one of my rods, one or two, to a heavier duty reel to handle that bigger line with less drag. I'll show you a couple other jigs that I like to use as well. One of my favorite jigs that I've been throwing for a couple of years now is this Outcast Tackle Seth Fighter cage fighter jig. It's now the cage fighter jig, like MMA, because Seth is no longer part of the pro squad for those. I think he's making his own jigs coming up here in the next year or two. Maybe they're already out. I haven't seen him though, so I'm not sure how far along he is on that. I know there was some rumblings of him coming out with his own gear. But this is a 3/4 ounce tungsten jig, really good jig. Real happy with that. It's got a horizontal line tie, which when I'm coming through weeds, I don't like the horizontals quite as much. But you can see by the way that it's built here that it's not. It doesn't have the big collar on it. So the jig head is shaped such that it doesn't have a big bulbous, collar on it, shoulders on it, so the weeds aren't going to catch. They're going to slide off here, and that has worked really good for me. Now, one of the other jigs that I like is this one here. This is a Dirty Jigs. I think this is a Scott Canterbury flipping jig. This jig's got the vertical line tie. This is only a 5/8 jig, so it's smaller weight or less weight than that cage fighter, but the head is quite a bit bigger. You can see the difference between tungsten and lead here. But both jigs work good in weeds, heavy weeds. This one's got the Canterbury's got the vertical line tie, so I like that quite a bit for coming through weeds. So those are those are generally I mean, I've got a box of jigs here that I use, but those are really the two favorites right here. I would say those are my two favorites. So now that we've gone over the jigs, let's go over some of the baits that I would throw on the back of these jigs. So in the springtime, I'm going to try and throw something in the spring and late fall. I'm going to throw something bulky and something that doesn't have a lot of movement. So I'm going to just basically throw like a standard chunk style bait. Now chunk styles, you know, these happen to be big bite chunks. I think I've got some zoom chunks here. Look a little bit different, but basically the same. I mean, you can't. It's basically just a chunk style bait. Everybody makes them. Zoom, Yum, Big Bite, Strike King. They all make the standard chunks. Now, if you want something else that you can throw on the back of a jig, you can trim down. You can trim down the old beaver style bait. This happens to be a Reaction Innovations Sweet Beaver, I think it's called. You can cut those down, put those on the back of a jig, or just, you know, if you've got a big enough hook on that jig, you can leave the whole thing on there. This thing makes it glide a little bit, sink a little bit slower. That's another good bait for not a lot of action in the colder water. And then when you get up into the warmer water periods, you can start throwing things that have more action to them. So you can throw something more like a big rage tail chunk on here. This one's a real long one. You buy the smaller ones, or you can cut these down. Those work really well. These are what the big Rage Menace. Otherwise, you can throw another double-tailed good one. Here is the Z-Craw by Zoom. That happens to be one of my favorites. I throw that on a number of presentations. Works great for backs of jigs. Another good one, Crush City Cleanup Craw. I have one out on another presentation. I'll show you what the actual bait looks like, but they come in a package like this. Crush City. It's basically just a craw body. Basically looks like a Rage Menace with little side appendages that catch a little more water, give a little more vibration when they go through the water. So yeah, frog jig so far. Go to the third presentation. Very similar to a jig, a slight difference here. This would be your punch skirt. This punch skirt happens to be one of my all-time favorites. I throw this a lot, even outside of the weeds or in sparse weeds. I'll throw it. I just like the action that it has. Plus, one benefit that I think it has over a jig is the weight can separate from the hook, and that gives you the fish less leverage to throw the hook. Now this happens to be like a 3/4 ounce head, lead head on this, of course. Tied the skirt myself, put it on there. It's paired with like a 6/0 Berkeley Fusion 19 hook. I use many different hooks. This year, I think if you've seen any of my previous videos, this year, the unboxing videos, you saw that I bought a bunch of trocar hooks this year. I'm going to try those out. As well as I have, Gamakatsu's, Mustads. I've got all kinds of hooks in my box. This is pinned here with a sinker stopper on here, bobber stop. But, they're not heavy duty enough to keep the weight from sliding up the line when you set the hook. So, like I said, it'll separate from the hook, gives them less leverage when they're trying to throw it. That's one of the reasons why I throw a lot of these Texas rigged baits even more than a jig. This rig happens to be a 7'3" heavy, fast action Shimano Intenza rod. It's got the 100 series Daiwa SV TW tattoo on here with, and I believe this is a little bit heavier braid. I think this is 40 pound. I think this is 40 pound braid on here. And I think it's the Seagar Smackdown. I think it's a little slicker than that. Generally, I like to throw some Dura braid, which I'll show on one of these next coming presentations. Some of the baits that you can throw on these punch skirts. This happens to be that cleanup craw that I mentioned with the jig. It basically just, you know, looks like a craw. A lot like a rage menace grub, but it's got extra appendages on there. I would say one of my other favorite ones is a Gambler Y knot on here. That's more of a round bait. It's not flat, so it's got a real thin profile. So when you throw that in the weeds, it'll hit. When you throw that in the weeds, it'll sink much faster without catching on the weeds. I like that a lot. It's got a decent scent on it as well. It's scented bait. You can throw that. You can throw all those baits that I mentioned before on there as well. You can throw a beaver on there. You can throw the Z-Craw on there. You can throw a missile D-bomb on here, baby D-bomb, D-bombs, depending on size. Just many different baits that you can throw on there that work great. So that weight that I had on there was like a 3/4 ounce Boss punch skirt weight that I bought off a Tackle Warehouse. Here's an example without the skirt, so you can see what they look like. This is a Mustad. This is only a 1/2 ounce, so it's a little bit lighter than that 3/4, but it's in size. It's a lot smaller. You can see that here, and you can see how the skirt collar is on here. You just pop a skirt on there, and you're ready to go. Tie on a hook, and you're ready to go. These Mustads are real nice. These go on sale a fair amount as well, so you can get a pretty good price on these as well. So my next presentation is probably my favorite presentation. That is just the straight Texas rig creature bait with a heavy weight on it. This happens to have a tungsten weight on it. This is a 3/4 ounce tungsten. Just regular flipping weight on here. It's paired with like a 3/0. It's got the bobber stopper on it again, the weight stopper on it, so the weight doesn't separate, because in that thicker weeds, if that weight separates, it'll hang and it won't go all the way to the bottom. It's only got like a 3/0 VMC hook on here. Depending upon the size of your bait, you can go much larger, obviously. Generally like to stick most of the time with like a 4/0 or 5/0 hook generally, but this 3/0 fit this bait pretty well. This is another creature bait. It's like the Bass Pro Shop version of like a brush hog type bait. Brush hog, of course, one of the best. Looks like this. Everybody knows what the brush hog looks like. And then another one of my favorite baits to throw on here would be the old Crush City Bronco bug. I don't know if you can actually see that. Let me get one out of the package here. You can actually look at it here. The Bronco bug is a bit different because the pinchers are vertical instead of horizontal. So you can see here, when you turn it sideways, they're taller than they are wide. It's got an interesting bend to it too. It's got a pivot point right where the claws attach to the body, so that it has a real good action. Not only do the claws go up and down like this when you're fishing it, but they'll go back and they'll go out and in as well, because they got those big paddles on there. This is a real sleeper bait. I don't think as many people throw this as should. It's really been a great bait for me. They're not the most durable baits around, but they certainly catch a lot of fish. So for this rod, it's another 7'4" heavy. I think this is an extra heavy actually. Yeah, this is a 7'4" extra heavy, fast, but it fishes more like a heavy than an extra heavy. That's one thing you'll find out as you're looking at rods and reels, is every company is different, and I buy whatever I can find that suits my need. A lot of them I buy sight unseen. So like this one I bought off a Tackle Warehouse. I had read some real good reviews on them, and then after I bought it, then of course I read some really terrible reviews on it. Temple Fork Outfitter. I think they've been great. I think I've got two of them now. I got one like this, and then I've got one that I throw like moving baits on. It's more of a cranking rod. I love them both. The thing I like about these rods is the guides on them are not ceramic. They're more of a some kind of a alloy on there, so the guides won't chip, they won't break. So it's real good for braid. I've got 30-pound spider wire Durabraid on here. Now this is the rig that I fish the most, and I have the line on that I like the most for this type of fishing. It's got Durabraid. It's more of a rough weave, so it really cuts through weeds when you set the hook and you're sliding through heavy vegetation. You can give it a big fish grabs it and takes off. You can really set the hook hard, and that line will cut right through those weeds, no problem. Even that stockier cabbage and things like that, milfoil, it'll just rip right through that stuff. Eelgrass, you catch a fish in a big eelgrass patch, and that fish swims off to the side, and pretty soon the whole damn bottom of the lake is floating on top because it cuts those weeds off so nice and clean. So another Tatula SV, TW, or whatever it is, 100 series again. So looking to upgrade those reels to a little bit beefier. I'm afraid I'm going to tear these up, but I haven't had issues with them so far. So I've fished them for about a year, 2 years now, and I've only ruined one. So hopefully I can make it at least another year. Let's talk about a couple other baits for that presentation. Not only does that those creature baits work good, that Bronco Bug works good, but my all-time favorite, of course, is the craw tube. I've talked about it a bunch in my other videos. There's just something about this bait. I don't know what it is. I think it could partially do with air that gets trapped in the tube, and then when it's on the bottom, it'll bubble air out of it. I'm not sure. It just has a big profile. You know, when it's sitting on the bottom, those claws are going. It's just the best bait that I found for flipping in the weeds. And then of course the standard flipping tube by Strike King is, I think, is a 5-inch. Just can't go wrong with a tube. Tube works for everything. I'll go over one more presentation. The final presentation of the day is, of course, Power Shot. Power Shot is basically just a drop shot on heavier duty gear. Now, you can throw this in any weed situation. You can throw this on no weeds. You can throw it on like a rock, sparse weeds, thick weeds. This particular setup that I have here, that I'm going to show you the presentation, is more of a sparse to medium thickness weed growth. I've got it on like 30-pound braid. It's on smooth braid. I think this is I think it's old school Power Pro. I'm not exactly sure. Slick. I've got like it's 30-pound. It's to a 20-pound fluorocarbon leader, and on that fluorocarbon leader, I've got like a 4/0 offset worm hook on here. tie that in a Palomar knot. You put your knot back through the eyelet and pull it straight, and then once you pull that straight, it rotates the knot in there. The bait will stick out from the line, and then it's got the dropper. You tie your weight on the bottom. Now the weight depends upon how thick the weeds are and how deep you're fishing, how fast you want it to sink. I generally throw like 1/2 to 3/4 ounce on here. Use a cylinder weight. It slips through the weeds easier. I would throw this if I was fishing heavy milfoil or coontail, or up in the slot. You make your dropper shorter, so that you always want your dropper long enough so that if the weeds are 4 inches off the bottom, it's got that low cover. You want it more than 4 inches so that your bait is above the weeds. If it's 8 inches, then you want your bait at 10 inches. So generally I don't go more than about 14 inches off the bottom with that. I generally the weeds generally, unless it's a thick coontail patch, the weeds are super thick milfoil. The weeds will, where the stalk is at the bottom, it kind of thins out the cover until it mats up on the surface. So you don't need to be that far off the bottom, but just be conscious of how deep you think how deep the weeds are. Try and keep your bait above the weeds. And I like that offset hook, because that allows you to pin that bait on there a little bit easier, and it lays flat. And some of the baits for this, of course, you can throw a worm on that. You can throw a big, obviously one of the best baits is the brush hog on there. The bronco bug is great on there. I caught a 4.5 on a bronco bug last year on that. You can throw any variety of bait that you want on that. Just make sure that your hook matches the size of the bait, and throw just about anything that you want on that. That will work great on deeper coontail patches when you side scan and you see fish around, or if you happen to have forward-facing sonar. I know a bunch of people that use those power shots during forward-facing on those deeper coontail patches, deeper weeds. You can see the fish in there, but they're not biting. If they don't chase, you just throw that sucker out there. Let it sit on the bottom, and then as you bob your rod tip, give it slack or whatever, that bait is swimming and moving, and they just can't resist it. They'll come out and eat it. So those are the 5 presentations that I like to fish, and some of the baits that I use on them. I like to fish these relatively slow. Swap out baits often, swap out presentations often to see which one is working the best. And if you get on a good bite and you catch a bunch of fish and then they stop biting, then always switch presentations, switch colors of baits. Make a few more casts in there, see if you can pick up a few more stragglers, or turn on a different part of the school with a different bait. That seems to work the best for me. So thanks so much for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. My name is Mark. This is Man on a Mission Fishing. I'll see you next time.